And we continue learning Dirshu Mishnah Bura, the halachas and ohagim besuda simkuf ayin zayin, and we're up to sif base. Teaches the machaber dvarim habayim la'achar asuda, entities that come after the meal, but koydem berchas hamazon. Shahaya minag b'michachme Gemara shebseif suda the minag in the times of the Gemara says the machaber that at the end of the meal, what would they do? They would stop eating bread, and they would remove it. The koivin atzman, they would have a kivius lechol peiros, to have fruit, velishtais, and to drink. Komash meviyim mazlaf name, whatever they would bring. Bein dvar mabayim machmas asuda, bein dvar mabayim shaloi machmas asuda. At this point, because they removed the bread to unim bracha, you have to make a bracha bein lifneihem, bein lachreim. Why? Says the machaber. Only that which you eat during the meal. V'din zeh, continues the machaber as we turn over the page. V'din zeh ha'acharoin, this final din that they would remove the bread at the end of the meal is not common amongst us. Why? We don't remove ourselves from the bread until we properly bench. Says the Mishnah Bura, Sivkatan Yud Aleph. Dvarim habayim machmas asuda ki ambasa dagim b'chaytz b'zeh, fish and meat, etc. Shaloi machmas asuda sivkat yabez, koberis min emitika habayim rak lichinuach l'chnal, bein la'achreiam, Sivkatan Yigimel, v'afim achal dvarim shebirchas mein shalosh lo nifter birchas hamazon. Even if you eat items that the alamichya would not patter up with the benching, why? Because you when you remove your hands from the bread, no more is it considered auxiliary, a love to him. Why? Because you remove the bread, you're done with the bread, and therefore but the Machaber has taught us this is something which is not really relevant for us. Continues, but again, we'll see. Actually, let's just see for a moment. Dirshu note number 17 points out Dirshu. Is that only Dirshu over here? 1 second. Yes. Says Dirshu, Erev Pesach Shachal b'Shabbos. You have Erev Pesach Shabbos. Everyone can remember those hectic and frenzied meals. You have bread on one table, says the Dirshu, and then you remove the bread and you eat it on another table, says the Cheshav Ha'ifai. This is not considered Akiras HaShulchan. Why? Because you're not doing this to stop the meal. You're doing this so that you don't have a Chash Chametz. Rav Yashiv says the same, and therefore you would not have a bracha issue. Maybe one would think this would be the one case that it is relevant, that which we just learned a moment ago. Maybe this should be the one case in which we have a proper removal of the bread, and therefore you need new brachas. Says Rav Yashiv, says the Cheshav Ha'ifai, no, because you're not being mafsik in the Seudah. Rather, what are you doing? You just don't have a chash chametz. Dirshu here continues, what if you're mukhrach to remove the bread? Why? Because it's the time of the Isser chametz. Now you mamish can't even eat the bread. Still, says the Shem Zalman and Rav Yashiv, this is not considered removing it from the meal, and you would not have to make a new bracha. Why? Because it's considered one Seudah, and it's a continuation of the Seudah, and Rav Yehuda Chassid sounds the same. So we see over here really how far this goes, that they had a certain minhag. Bizman Chachmei HaGemara, they would mamish end the meal, and it was a new meal entirely. And it's not just a balabatishkeit, that you don't have any more bread, and it's not just a simple practicality that maybe you took the bread off the table as you were cleaning up. It's a proper new Seudah, so much so that the Cheshav Ha'ifai, Rav Yashiv, Shem Zalman, they're all explaining that on Erev Pesach Shachal b'Shabbos, even if at that moment you have no more bread because of the Chasash Chametz, and even if it's the Zman Isser, so you certainly have no bread, still you would not have to make a new bracha on any of the items during the Seudah. And we'll continue with Sif Gimel the next year, B'siyata Dishmaya.